Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Bituation Room live. I am your host, Francesca Fiorentini, back from a little mini vacation. Also, had a Monday stream. We're trying to get that to the podcast audience ASAP. My goodness, what a packed show we have for y'all today. Voting in New York City, a chance to defeat a political dynasty, a corrupt, shame to all Italian-American political dynasty of Andrew Cuomo. Obviously, the Zohran surge is real. And we're going to be talking about that with journalist Liza Featherstone Elizabeth a little bit later on. I'm feeling excited. I'm feeling excited. We'll have more thoughts. We'll look at the polling, the excitement, also the rabid Islamophobia and all the kinds of hate and all the billionaires and really the corporate establishment throwing down somehow with Andrew Cuomo. But, of course they are. We live in hell. This is trash. But again, Zohran being a bright light. We're also going to be talking about the ceasefire that wasn't between Iran and Israel because Trump wanted it to be, just days after the United States struck 3 nuclear facilities in Iran, which now we know maybe didn't do that much damage. Journalist Negar Mortazavi is here, back on the program, and I'm super excited to talk to her about what this means. What is the mood also in Iran? Among the Iranian people, as they see, what seemed almost inevitable has happened, the U.S. Getting involved in a war with Iran. But first, I'll be bitching about something. There's endless things to bitch about. You should be bitching about something. Endless things to bitch about. Endless news. Does anyone want to be inundated with all this news? I don't. I would love just one afternoon. And yet here we are, and we press on because we must, because we're in authoritarianism. Guys, like this show, share this show, like the stream. Send in your comments and your questions and your super chats. I'll be reading them throughout the show. If you're listening as a podcast, thank you so much for pressing play on your time. Why don't you give this show 5 stars wherever you get your podcasts? Write something nice. That'd be amazing. Also, if you have not checked out our deep dive video into the Broligarchy or the Peter Thiels and the Brian Armstrongs and the Andreessens and all of that, right? All the crypto fascists who are pulling the strings, not just on the Trump administration, but on Democrats as well, and who have their sights set on way bigger things than MAGA. Check that out. It is called The World After Trump. I think I changed the title recently, but go to youtube.com/FrannyFio. It's also out as an audio. And thank you so much for all of the sweet comments. It was a huge amount of effort. Again, shout out to Paige and to Brent for their incredible work. Also, animator Marissa just did an incredible job. So I love doing those for you. It reminds me of my Newsbroke days, but they are incredibly time consuming to produce. And, but hey, if you want to support the show and you want more of that, patreon.com/Bituation Room. That's what you do. That's where you go. You become a patron, a patron, if you will. $5 a month, $10 a month, $20 a month, $10 a month or above gets you that shout out during the fart song. You can also become a member on YouTube and you can become a member on Twitch. You get access to all of our bonus content on Wednesdays, which I am starting to think might have to be publicly available given the pace of news, but we will see. And just so grateful for y'all. You get 25% off of our sponsor, Sunset Lake CBD, which I'll be talking about in a little bit. You get 20% off of merch, our cute little shirts and our tote bags and our stickers. More merch will be added. And before I go on, I also want to let you know, I'm doing a bunch of live shows. So if you're here in Pasadena, you know what's up. Pasadena City Council trying to rein in ICE. But look, don't let ICE take our joy. Come to the ICE House. F-ICE, come to the ICE House on Saturday, July 5th at 9:30 p.m. I'm doing my show, New World Disorder. Me, Matt Lieb, and a bunch of other awesome comedians are going to be there. It's going to be such a good night. Back at it. Also, August 1st and 2nd in Seattle. Friday night, the August 1st, Laughs Comedy, Matt and I co-headlining. Saturday, August 2nd, an incredible live Bitchuation Room at the Rainier Arts Center in South Seattle. Come out, get your tickets, support me, the show, one another. It's just, I always love our live shows. It's just such, they're so healing, also stressful for me, but healing. And then Houston, Texas, people. End of Thursday, August 28th, we'll be in Houston. Matt and I co-headlining the Punchline. Get your tickets for that. And patrons, you get $5 off your ticket for Houston. So don't buy them yet. Let me put the code out. Hang on. If you're in the Houston area, if you already bought them, I'm sorry. I'll buy you a drink. I don't know, a coffee. How much is a drink in Texas? The point is this. Come out, see me. Thank you so much. Also, if you're like sick of ads on podcasts, on this podcast, when you become a patron, you get your own special feed, right? There's no ads. No ads on that. It's one of the many reasons you should become a patron. And now, people, let's get into it. This is What Are You Bitching About? So we all know that the U.S. has started a hot war with Iran. And I think that it really is, it's just an incredible distraction in addition to illegal from the actual war that's happening on the American people right now. The war that is playing out in cities like Los Angeles, the city that I am in, greater Los Angeles, despite protests, despite Gavin Newsom and Mayor Bass saying that, ICE should not be operating in the way it is and going after and targeting, random undocumented workers, despite Senator Alex Padilla being thrown to the ground by DHS goons. ICE is very much still operating. Every single hour, I see new reports of new ICE raids, whether it's here in Los Angeles or in, like the Inland Empire, whether it is in Santa Ana, as this video is from. This is a man who was a landscaper, is a landscaper, and he was working outside with a weed whacker. He was tending to the grass outside of an IHOP in Santa Ana, California, and he was attacked by ICE thugs. And here they are. There's no audio on this, but here they are punching him in the head. They get him up. They grab his weed whacker, which, by the way, Kristi Noem said he attacked them with, which is not true. He's trying to resist going into the car until they take a metal rod and push it on his neck until he falls into the back seat of the car. Ladies and gentlemen, this is an attack on workers. This is an attack on immigrants. This is an attack on Angelenos and just people who've lived in this country. This is a man named Narciso Barranca. He's lived in this country for 30 years. He has 3 sons. One was in the Marines. 2 of them are active duty Marines. He himself is undocumented, but he is no criminal. He's quite literally minding his own damn business, helping clean up the hedge outside of an IHOP. And this is how these cowardly fucks treat him. So yeah, I'm still bitching about the war on American soil, on Americans. See, because my anti-war stance includes not deploying the Gestapo to undocumented immigrants in this country. And on top of that, this is also a week where we found out about the story of Iris Diana Monterosa Lemus. She's from Guatemala. She is married to an American citizen, and she was 5 months pregnant when she was detained by ICE in March. She was held in the detention center in Louisiana, denied adequate food, denied medical care, until she lost that pregnancy. 5 months pregnant, lost the pregnancy. She said she was in pain. She said she was given pills, but wasn't really sure what they were and stopped taking them after 2 days. She begged to be deported to Guatemala because at least in Guatemala, she would receive some kind of gynecological care, some kind of care for the pain she was feeling. No, instead, she was sleep deprived and again, lost this pregnancy, gave birth to a stillborn fetus in a hospital with ICE goons in the room. In multiple points during her birth, she was handcuffed, people. Then they called the father, the American citizen, and said, "Oh, we've got your dead baby. You need to pay to have it mailed to you." This is the kind of dehumanizing insanity, the horrendous, just like it's fucking no one in your wildest dreams would write something this awful. Um, and that's what's playing out. So Narciso still in detention. I'm not sure where he's originally from. So he's in detention. Iris, that these are the conditions of said detention. She's still detained. She is. Oh no, she's been deported. She's finally back in Guatemala, and she says she does not want. This is not the country she thought it was. She learned to love this country, and now no longer after what she's been through, losing her child. There's no words anymore, man. I mean, there's good news. Again, Mahmoud Khalil is free. That happened last week, and, wasn't able to talk about it. So there are victories. There is attention and spotlight on certain cases, but there are other cases, and this is a smattering, man. You know how many more horror stories are playing out every goddamn day? And the impotence that we feel as Angelenos is insane. The inability, like, what do we do? LAPD is collaborating with ICE. Mayor Bass says they're not. No, they are. They absolutely are. They're not. No one is defending our communities except for people. You've seen, images and video of people trying to chase ICE out of their businesses, and it's worked. So anyway, the point is, film ICE, ask them if they're ICE, ask them for their badge numbers, go outside where apparently they're now Airbnb-ing in Silver Lake. Gonna run down and get a smoothie at Erewhon. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're trying to meld, this Gestapo is trying to meld among us. And where are our leaders? And on top of that, where are the Democrats? Lastly on this doesn't happen. You cannot dehumanize people like this unless you think of them as not human, right? Like, you can't treat people like this unless you dehumanize them. And where have the Democrats been when it comes to rehumanizing them? When it comes to actually standing up for, yes, undocumented immigrants? Where is that? Where's that narrative? No, it's been, well, as long as you're, not a criminal, as long as you're not a criminal. Well, the definition of criminal changes depending on whether Stephen Miller woke up with a fucking heart on or not. In fact, we know their definition of criminal is guy who's doing landscaping outside of an IHOP minding his damn business, who has 3 sons, who served them in the Marines, served to protect this country. He's a criminal. Sure. Breastfeeding mother, criminal. Sure. What a good day to be an actual hardened criminal. What a good time to actually be like, cooking meth up in some sort of bunker. Like, motherfuckers have no idea. They're going after day laborers. Easy. Cowards. Ridiculous. Anyway, that's what I'm continuing to bitch about, this war on all of us. And with that, I'm going to turn to just letting you guys know about my favorite little way to calm down. Way to stay focused, way to go to sleep. Sunset Lake CBD, that is right. I like to partake in a little oops, can't sleep, need to get my good night gummy out, CBD. SunsetLakeCBD.com, guys, based in Vermont, for vertically integrated, regeneratively farmed CBD product. They've got all kinds of stuff, including, like I said, gummies for sleep, for focus, for just relaxing. They have Delta 9 gummies for a little bit more. They also have salves for your aching parts and bodies. Oh my God, after traveling with a I feel like she's like a 40-pound baby at this point. I need all of the salves on my back. Um, Also, they've got chocolates and coffee and smokables and vapes. So sunsetlakecbd.com, 20% off your entire order with coupon code FRANTIFA, FRANTIFA. And thank you so much for being a sponsor of this show. And with that, people, let me bring her back in. She is an Iranian-American journalist, political analyst, editor, and host of the Iran podcast. Please welcome Negar Mortazavi. Hello.
Hi, Francesca. Great to be back.
Good to be back. So glad to have you on. It feels like the news is moving so fast that even by the time people might be watching this or reading this, something else has changed. But it's nice to have you on to talk about sort of the broader picture of what all of this means going forward, in Iran, Iranian society. But first, I guess just, Negar, your reaction to wanting, Steve Witkoff in Iran, about to make a deal, about to meet to talk about restarting the Iran deal, and striking 3 nuclear sites in the country, basically Israel's dream come true.
Right. So I think one thing that is clear here is that there's no strategy. Like, this is really happening. Well, on the US side, there's definitely strategy on the Israeli side. And that strategy has been war, and they finally started it. But there was no strategy on the US side. I mean, to begin with, to give nuclear negotiations a deadline of 60 days when the Iranians don't even trust the administration to come and sit at the table with them. I mean, looking back at the Obama era, President Obama, that administration was able to earn, sort of win the trust of the Iranians, sit at a table with world powers, not just US and Iran, with Russia, China, European powers, France, Germany, and the UK, and negotiate a nuclear deal that took 2 years. So to think that you can do something like that while you also unraveled it once, and I'm talking about the first Trump administration, who pulled out of the nuclear deal, then assassinated a top Iranian general. And then to think that you can go back to the table and negotiate something that complex in just 60 days. I mean, that's one thing. And then
so what you're saying is, like, diplomacy takes work. Is that what the implication is?
Hard work. So exactly. So, and this is not a joke, part of the reporting back then was that the top negotiators of Iran and the US and some of these parties are spending more time together in these rooms than with their own families. They would go into negotiations of, let's say, 18 hours of talks at a time. I used to cover this from Vienna, where they would go into that hotel and not come out for hours and hours and hours, reporters waiting there. It's tough work, and a lot of various different components and experts involved. So especially the US side would bring these like huge teams of experts, because we're talking about something very complex, a nuclear program, enrichment, levels, centrifuges, things that even I, who've been reporting it for 10 years, still don't understand. Like, I rely on nuclear experts to explain this to me so that I can come and then explain it to a mainstream. But anyways, it was hard work. And then I think one thing that wasn't a secret was that the Israeli Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, had been pushing for a US war in Iran, US attack on Iran, since the invasion of Iraq. This is no secret. I'm not making it up. He's been saying it in US Congress, all over, in public and private. The Israelis had been pushing for this war. So this is something he's wanted. We can't claim this came out of the blue. And then 2 days before the last round of Iran-US negotiations were scheduled to happen on Sunday, he goes for the attack, which I think, more than destroying the nuclear program or military targets, etc. And I also want to talk about the civilian toll later on.
Yes.
I think the main target of that attack was nuclear diplomacy, was Iran and the US getting together to try to resolve this diplomatically. Benjamin Netanyahu has been trying to sabotage US-Iran diplomacy since the Obama years. everything in his power he could do, even invited himself to the US Congress and gave a speech against Barack Obama, then president. He's tried to prevent it under Trump. He's tried to prevent it under Biden. And now in the past few months when talks started, he was trying to sabotage it every way he could. And I think he saw a window of opportunity to just start this conflict and eventually pull the US into it to make sure that diplomacy doesn't happen. And I think that was the main goal that was achieved here.
Right, which is what Israel needed. I mean, that's the other question I have for you. I mean, I want to talk about maybe the new information about the damage that was or was not done to the nuclear sites. But I've heard other commentators say that this really will, because it did tank the possibility for negotiations, this will guarantee that Iran will most definitely will seek to develop a nuclear weapon, if only as a deterrent. What is your response? What do you think? And also, like, maybe just poke a hole or point out how ridiculous it is, I guess, that Trump now is like, well, now peace. Well, now we're going to negotiate.
Right. So I think what happened here, what we saw happening is initially during the campaign, and then when he first came into office, President Trump was actually pretty consistent, saying that Iran just can't have nuclear weapons. And this was an acceptable term to the Iranians. And they said, okay, let's sit down and negotiate the terms of that. But then throughout the process of negotiations, I'm assuming because of pressure from certain interest groups, Israel, the neocons within his own party, because, there's MAGA and then there's the neocons, who are the classic sort of foreign policy elite, always pushing for wars and conflict. I think throughout the course of these negotiations, those with that kind of power and pressure eventually came on top, and the goalposts started to move. So from no nuclear weapons, it moved to no enrichment and potentially no nuclear program. And enrichment for a civilian level has been something that's very important to Iran. It's been a red line. They've never agreed to it. They've been willing to fight it tooth and nail. And they said, we have a declared nuclear program, which is under the NPT, International Nuclear Safeguards, inspection monitoring. Why shouldn't we be allowed to enrich and have a civilian program? We will negotiate the levels and the stockpile and the percentage, et cetera, but we want to keep the civilian program and the enrichment. So it was a deal breaker. And then throughout the course of sort of this moving of the goalpost, I think what happened maybe is that there's this thinking that maybe if we push them, if we attack them and pressure them through force, they will eventually accept, if the program is not destroyed, that they will eventually accept a deal that they weren't able to accept, they weren't willing to accept. So I think a whole bunch of things happened here. First, a military attack on the nuclear programs, which experts had been saying it's impossible to destroy the program through just aerial bombardments. And right now, reporting and intelligence leak is coming that, in fact, it wasn't destroyed and that the stockpile had been moved from that location beforehand. This is after even the U.S. strike. And then also,
is this the Forlan, the one in the big mountain?
Yes. So Fordo, Natanz, and outside Esfahan were the three main locations. And now the leak says that essentially the program, the overall program, which is scattered across the country, was not destroyed. It was just set back by a few months. So the program wasn't destroyed. There was also chatter of regime change throughout this, especially by the Israelis, although the U.S. is pushing back on that, on this being a regime change war. But then in the course of all of this, also a high civilian toll, especially on the Iranian side. I mean, on the Israeli side as well, but on the Iranian side, we just got health ministry data: 600 killed, 5,000 injured, many of them women and children. And then also millions of people displaced. We don't even know the numbers, but these evacuation orders come from the Israelis on social media, middle of the night, asking very large areas of civilians to just evacuate. And then President Trump posted on Truth Social one night that everyone from Tehran should evacuate. Tehran itself has more people than the entire country of Israel, a metropolis of 10 million people and children, disabled, sick, elderly. How do you evacuate in the middle of the night? So the lucky few who had cars, who found fuel. So fuel, you had to wait 5-6 hours in a gas station line just to fill up a tank and then get out of the city hours and hours in congested traffic. It's just mayhem and shock and terror. And then also a lot of people killed and injured in the course of, I don't even know what this is, because none of the desired goals were achieved.
Well, so that's I mean, yes, that is more breaking news that the Fordo site was not destroyed. It was just damaged. And also the lie that these sites had nuclear weapons, right? Like even just that like that you see even the Chuck Schumers and, you know, others sort of playing into like Iran is a imminent threat. And it's like, well, it's actually not. It's actually not. I don't know why we're sort of going with this imminent threat line when there is no actual evidence that these sites had nuclear weapons, right? And as you're saying, the goalposts of the Iran negotiations moving to include just energy or uranium enrichment writ large, which was never actually on the table in the original Iran deal. I mean, there really is nothing that Iran could do to satisfy the United States other than, I mean, yeah, just saying, okay, no energy whatsoever. You get to determine our energy policy in this country. But just in terms of where Israel's striking, can you, like 600 civilians killed, where are they targeting? Because are these, they're clearly this is more than just these nuclear sites that are ostensibly remote, but maybe, you know, maybe talk about where the strikes have been landing.
Sure. Let me first just add to what you were saying. This is not Iranian intelligence or Israeli intelligence, you know, parties to the conflict. This is U.S. intelligence as late as last week, Trump administration intelligence saying, no, it is not a weapons program. It is still a civilian nuclear program, and they have not made the decision to weaponize, even though they have acquired enough material that can potentially one day be used if they decide to build a bomb to a bomb, and then that bomb has to be launched, put on something that needs to. So there are a lot of ifs here, but U.S. intelligence, you know, this is not Iranian saying we did it. And then the other lie that we hear a lot in the media, or the falsehood, is that Iran was cheating under the Obama nuclear deal, which is not true. Again, State Department under the first Trump administration also, time and again, and then under Obama, reported that Iran is abiding by the terms of the nuclear deal. Well, they didn't like the deal because it was made by the previous guy who was a Democrat, and then the president came. And that's, you know, that's not the world's problem when the country goes and signs and makes a deal and shakes hand, and then the party changes and all of a sudden you don't like what the previous one did. This is not how you can do international relations, but apparently now that's the case in the US. But anyway, so these were sort of the two main disinformation sort of clouds that were created and perpetuated by the reporting. And then on top of all of this, looking at the big picture, or sort of the elephant in the room, is the only country in the region who has actual nuclear weapons, Israel. It's an undeclared program. It's not under international safeguards. They're not a signatory to the NPT. They don't even acknowledge that they have it. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. And the media reporting also goes with this. It's not just in the political discourse, it's also very much lax in the media reporting. So you ask an average person who in the Middle East has a nuclear program, chances are they're going to tell you Iran. And this is a result of this kind of reporting. As far as what's being held,
well, just on the Israel having nukes, I mean, it's like just from, you know, the last 18 months, 20 months of genocide, every accusation is a confession. Everything, you know, the human shields line when Israelis are using Palestinian prisoners as shields on top of tanks, or like, oh, the beheaded babies. Okay, well, that never happened, but there are infants being murdered by Israeli strikes. I mean, just the endless accusation of the other to demonize them. And then you see Netanyahu's line over the last, 30 years, is Iran's just a month away from a nuke, just a month away from the nuke. And you're like, buddy, I'm pretty sure you're a month away from a nuke. Like, I'm pretty sure you guys have the nuke, like, of all the places. And that means they're not party to the NPT. The IAEA has not inspected Israel, right? There's no agreement. And I believe under international law, the US would not be able to fund Israel should it have nukes that were undeclared or not party to the NPT. Like, we wouldn't be able to support, obviously, forget supporting a country that's doing genocide or doing these acts of war, on sovereign nations like Iran and Lebanon, but we wouldn't be able to fund them because they've got a nuke. So anyway, just a finer point on the Israel has nukes line. Back to Iran.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then as far as your question on what's been attacked, so initially this was framed as a preemptive strike on Iran, and preemptive has connotations in international law. Preemptive is when you realize an enemy is about to imminently attack you, or imminent danger, and you figure it out and you go for it first to prevent that attack. They haven't produced the evidence of the imminent attack, which is the nuclear bomb that the Iranians haven't built yet, let alone to decide to launch it against Israel. So it wasn't a preemptive attack. And they framed it as an attack on Iran's nuclear program. It wasn't just a nuclear program. It also came with targeted assassinations of Iranian military, Iranian nuclear scientists. And these are people who were sleeping at night in their homes with their families in civilian areas. We've seen images of entire apartment buildings destroyed, or if there was one unit in an apartment, about 20 units all around it have been impacted and destroyed. Gas leaks and fire spreads, people get killed, cars get destroyed on the street, car bombs were set off in some of these assassinations, drones have been flying, there are internal stations Israel has infiltrated, and there have been internal sort of attack stations across the country with explosives and etc. And so it's been a real, and then just in the past 2 days, and including after the quote-unquote ceasefire, there have been real heavy attacks in some areas, especially Tehran, which prompted, again, people to try to flee as much as they can. Some are even leaving the country. The airspace has been closed. People are leaving through land borders, or at least leaving Tehran. Yeah.
Where are people going?
Well, to neighboring countries wherever you can. So Iran has borders with Armenia, Turkey, Iraq, although the Iraqi airspace has also been closed because Iraq is on the way of these two countries basically shooting over it, and Israeli planes going over it, which the Iraqis are also not happy about, but they also have no control over Israeli jets basically going over their sky and attacking another country. But it's basically impacted not just Iran and Israel, but the region, but then also, of course, the civilian toll on the Israeli side and the horror of running to shelters and all of that. It's something I want to acknowledge. But the numbers on the Iranian side are very high, and it certainly wasn't just an attack on the nuclear program or military targets.
Right. And right now, just looking at the, breaking news that Israel's warning that their campaign isn't over. They're far from ending, these attacks on Iran. I'm assuming Iran is not about to stop either. And here was Trump this morning. We saw this, right? And it's been a couple hours now. But, Trump thought that his Truth Socials, if he just, tweeted in all caps, things like Israel, don't drop those bombs. If you do it, it's a major violation. Bring your pilots home. And this is like 6:50 in the morning. And he even signed it his name, like the actual grandpa that he is, just like signing his own text messages. So he clearly knew that Israel was about to, continue bombing Iran. And then he got pretty pissed at it because he thought there was a ceasefire and he could be Mr. Ceasefire.
Israel, as soon as we made the deal, they came out and they dropped a load of bombs, the likes of which I'd never seen before. The biggest load that we've seen. I'm not happy with Israel. When I say, okay, now you have 12 hours, you don't go out in the first hour and just drop everything you have on them. So I'm not happy with them. I'm not happy with Iran either. But I'm really unhappy if Israel's going out this morning because of one rocket that didn't land, that was shot, perhaps by mistake, that didn't land. I'm not happy about that. You know what? We basically have two countries that have been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the fuck they're doing. Do you understand that?
Ooh, He used the F word. There's Trump actually pissed off. It's like he didn't get the memo that Israel's just gonna do whatever it wants, and you got played, my man. But is there even any um is there even any truth into what he's saying in terms of like I made a deal and the ceasefire and they did like can you translate what he's saying at all, Negar?
Yes. So, at the end of the day, he's still president of the United States, potentially the most
Sadly.
powerful person on earth. Yeah. So everything he does, tweet or Truth Socials. I was talking to family in Tehran when that evacuation order for Tehran came, and they're like, "Is this serious?" I was like, "I don't know. There's 50% chance it isn't. There's also 50% chance this is the president of the United States. So how about you take it seriously and leave the city?" But yeah, it's real lives we're talking about here. I think what the reporting that we're hearing and also back channels is that mediators, especially through Qatar, who is a friend to both Iran and the US, and also they took the attack of Iran's retaliation because there's a US base there. In fact, that friendship led to that attack, to them hosting the attack as well. But they helped mediate a sort of a ceasefire, which obviously Israel, as they have been violating ceasefires in Gaza, is going to violate, and they did. And there was one Iranian, the rocket he's talking about is an Iranian rocket. I think it was by mistake. It's still not clear, but one Iranian rocket was also shot after the ceasefire, and it didn't hit anything. But the Israelis came out with a very heavy bombardment after he announced the ceasefire, and it looks like he's very pissed. And let me just go back to the big picture here. Look, he campaigned on a campaign of peace. He literally called himself the president of peace. He thinks he deserves a Nobel Peace Prize. He's been asking for it.
Yes, he does.
He said he's going to bring peace to Ukraine and Russia. He said he's going to bring peace to the Middle East. Well, Ukraine and Russia, peace didn't happen. Gaza didn't happen. In fact, it got worse. And now there's another war starting under his watch. And what are we at? June yet? It's not even 6 months, almost 6 months. And a third war started. So yes, the American public does not have an appetite, no interest for another big regime change war in the Middle East. And they understood that. This administration and the campaign understood that. That's actually one of the reasons they won, because of that anti-war message. And it's ironic that he's been criticizing, even mocking past presidents for either wanting to start a war with Iran or be about to start a war. There was a clip, I think even on CNN, now this is being shown, of how many times he's criticized other presidents and accused them of wanting to start a war with Iran. Well, he's the one who did it. And now I feel like they're trying to backtrack it and go back into the president of peace mode and this administration of peace. And I just don't know if the Israelis are going to let that happen, essentially going back to the negotiating table.
Well, let's talk about where things go from here, right? Because this has been, I mean, they're divergent views of what the future holds, right? Trump and Hegseth and Marco Rubio and JD Vance are out there saying this is not about regime change. This is about 3 strikes. We did it. We got them. You're welcome, world. Peace accomplished. I don't know what they think day 2 or day 3 or even year 2 or 3 or month 2 or 3 even looks like after saying all that. But Israel has always had very clear regime change goals when it comes to Iran. Maybe can you just explain the why around that? I'll go first and say great distraction if you want to take over the West Bank completely and completely kill all the people in Gaza. Perfect way to not talk about Palestinians. But why else is regime change the goal of Israel?
Well, because they see that, or have propped up also to some extent, Iran as the main enemy. I mean, it is true that Iran and Israel are arch enemies in the region. They're big rivals. Both are regional powers, although one of them has the support of the world superpower and wouldn't have this kind of supremacy over everyone else in the neighborhood if it wasn't for U.S. material and financial support over the years, diplomatic cover, etc., etc. But yeah, this has been also sort of a career goal of Benjamin Netanyahu, to try to either attack or start a war or sabotage, and potentially even bring regime change to Iran. And you've seen it in public statements and also in the sort of actions or the cycles of these attacks. Something's happened over the past week since the war started. They hacked the Iranian state television and put out these messages to the Iranian people, reminding them of how repressive the regime is, which is true, and how much they hate it, which is also true, and then expecting them to rise up and, bring down the regime and your own revolt, while people were actually running away from the same government, from Israeli bombs coming down on cities, on the homeland, and on some homes. We've really seen, I wouldn't say a rally around the flag as in supporting the government, but a sense of unity has been created. Right. And we see anti-war messaging echo from Iran because of the fact that they see an attack on the homeland, on their homes, on their sovereignty. And people are saying, no, we don't want these freedom bombs. This is not how you bring democracy and better governance. And, all of the criticism that they've had for the repressive domestic state of their country, they're saying this is not the way. Don't put us between a rock and a hard place and then keep pressing, thinking that we're going to be happy about it. And we're also hearing this echo statements of the political opposition, civil society, and many of the people who've been active sort of in opposition to the government internally.
Yeah, I mean, what is the response to, because we, last time you were on, we talked about the immense amount of restraint that Iran had shown up until this point. I mean, the sort of symbolic retaliation after the killing of Ismail Haniyeh in the Syrian embassy in Tehran, like that was hugely provocative. And so it's always sort of been squarely on Iran to, well, you guys have to be the bigger man here, even though these are the bigger militaries. But yeah, maybe just talk more about the internal discussions. Obviously, it is terrifying to have Netanyahu tell your country. I mean, even if it were like this, if it were this country, which he basically did when Obama was president, which was like, this is not really the president, guys. Okay, your president sucks. Let's wait for a guy like Trump. Even with Biden, oh yeah. Oh, he's gonna like be nice to him, but this is not really the guy that I want. But for Netanyahu to tell like the Iranian people, rise up and get rid of your leader. And again, the apparent alleged assassination attempt plans on Ayatollah Khamenei and which were, I guess, not part of what Trump and the administration wanted to do. I guess, yeah, what does this mean for what happens when these attacks happen on Iranian civil society? Like you're saying, it's less rally around the government and more rally around with one another. What does that look like? Say more about that.
So I want to be fair, and also there is a lot of criticism against the government. There is huge opposition inside the country to the government, political, economic, social, even cultural grievances that people have that haven't been addressed. But at the same time, this is not how freedom comes. This is not how those grievances have been addressed. And I think even for part of that sort of activist community who thought this may be a good opportunity, after the past 10 days, now they've been more clear-eyed, understanding that, okay, this is not how, a better future comes for the country. People also see the experiences of Iraq and Afghanistan, sort of these regime change wars, and how it brought more instability, insecurity, and conflict and chaos to the region. So it doesn't mean that they're rallying around their government and that they love their government and that they don't want it to change its behavior or potentially change at all. But it also means that they don't want, while they're dealing with this repressive system, they don't want to also be bombed from the skies. I mean, I don't know why that's so hard to understand for the mainstream, and we have to keep explaining this to everyone, and it's just coming as such a big surprise that people don't like to be bombed from the sky. What a big surprise! So I think,
or the fact that the idea that taking out a leader and replacing them with your handpicked person is the way to go. That has been done in Iran by the United States before, and taking out Mossadegh, right? and installing the Shah, and then you get the Iranian Revolution. And so this is, again, we're like history repeating. Forget 2003 and the Iraq War. This is more on the nose than that when it comes to Iran. And yes, the first time you were on this show, Negar, was when you talked about the women life freedom movement and how inspiring it was and how incredible it was. But and when did that movement? I mean, I'm very much of the mind that, like, the more emboldened hardliners are, whether in the United States or in Iran, the less space there is for real social movements to actually flourish. And again, not trying to play into sort of the U.S. orchestrating any of that, or trying to support, dissident groups, which, by the way, we know is already happening, but just writ large, like that is the trend. Like, when you're being bombed from the sky, yes, you cannot organize a liberatory feminist movement so easily.
Exactly. And I think one thing that I like about the civil society and sort of the larger population is the fact that they want peaceful change, that they want peaceful, even if it's a transition or whatever. The word peaceful is always echoing, and against that, sort of the statements that are anti-war. Now, a lot of people also criticize their own government for their long-term strategy and policy and posturing in the region for sort of bringing this animosity to it. They're saying, we should have been more careful in dealing with the US, in dealing with Israel, with the West, etc., etc. But that doesn't mean that they see this sort of foreign attack and potentially invasion of their homeland, of their cities, of their homes as legitimate. One doesn't justify the other. And being stuck, even for the most anti-regime opposition, this situation is being stuck between a rock and a hard place, to put it mildly. And then also this has rallied some support for the government because people see the state as their only defender, as the only one who's going to protect them against these bombs that are coming from the sky. And so, the dynamic didn't really turn out as some had imagined and expected it to be.
Yeah, I mean, I think the question is, we sort of left this ball bouncing, but one thing I've heard Trita Parsi say multiple times now is that Iran's most definitely going to seek a nuclear weapon. What are your thoughts on that? And what do you feel like, what happens from here? And what do you hope happens?
Well, it's a possibility. We don't know. But if that does happen, we can certainly thank Benjamin Netanyahu and Donald Trump for it, because the Iranians had been warning that if their nuclear program, which is civilian, if it gets attacked, then they're going to pull out of that NPT, out of that international safeguards, which they may very well do. And then this can open the door for more clandestine, underground, undeclared activity that can potentially one day be a weaponized program. And so if that does happen, we will know that this is what gave them the reason to do it, and sort of that change or shift in the policy. So that's certainly a big danger. And then also just, normalizing this sort of behavior and atmosphere of attacking nuclear material, the toxic
this is what I was going to ask.
Radiation, yes. Environmental
nobody's asking
health.
This question. Yes.
Yeah, some international organizations, UN agencies had been warning, but that's just not heard through the noise of all the, hyped up, whatever. Like, when did this become normal for countries to just casually attack nuclear material and nuclear programs, and for the Iranians to scramble to get it out of that place to God knows to what place? There's all the issue of safety and how this is all being handled.
Like just like the danger that poses. Yes, the cost, the cleanup, the pollution, but also the like that. If it's, I know it's hard for Americans to imagine if that happened to us, but if like our nuclear site in Colorado or something were attacked, that would be an act of war. Even if it were about like a warhead or not, doesn't matter. It would be an act of war that is incredibly violent. To do that, I think, that's the question. I'm like, hey, what happens when you bunker buster bomb a nuclear site? I'm sure it's all fine. Nothing like Fukushima, nothing like Chernobyl, right? Like, nobody knows. Well, they know. It's awful.
It's awful. Yeah. I mean, so I'm still waiting for more independent reporting, but if the Iranians had moved the material, which seems to be the case, then at least maybe that threat doesn't exist. But it could very well be a threat. And then also, like I'm saying, normalizing this for the long term, all this talk of rules-based international order, the various conventions, sort of the system that the US was a leader to put in place in the world for certain things to not happen. And all of them have been happening in front of our eyes in the past 2 or so years, with war crimes, with genocide, ethnic cleansing, dehumanizing, going for civilians, bombing hospitals, attacking journalists while they're alive on air and things like that. To normalize that, it's just astonishing, and it seems to be the new norm.
Yeah. I mean, we will see what happens from here. Again, I think if it were just the US and Iran, there might be hope. The fact that Israel ultimately does call a lot of the shots, and that despite dropping the F-bomb, Donald Trump really, look, if you're mad at Israel, stop sending them so many weapons. If you're mad at Israel, do something that would actually punish them. If they're making you look like a fool and they're disobeying you, you're the bigger country, you've got the bigger military. But he won't do that, right? And so again, Israel loves this, loves dragging us into this, and also loves distracting again from their own crimes. Negar Mortazavi, is the podcast back? Are you doing it? I know that maybe I was checking in with it, but can people find you there, or where can people find you?
Yes, it's not the podcast hasn't stopped. It's just been on a pause because the war happened and so many other things. But it will be back soon. Yes, we will be back soon. So please do follow the podcast, the Iran podcast, and we'll activate it sooner than later.
And where can we follow you on social media? What's your preference?
I try to post everything on Twitter and Instagram for the haters of Twitter, or X, whatever you call it. I haven't made it to the other ones yet. It's just too hard to catch up with. But I'm active, posting all of my work on Twitter and Instagram as much as I can, and also LinkedIn, which is my professional profile. Yes, but Twitter, I would say, is the most. X or Twitter.
Yes, and it is Negar. I'm just trying to make sure I got. Yes, Mortazavi. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for this update. I always appreciate your perspective, and come back again soon.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Yes, anytime. And with that, let's move. I think Negar is also in New York. I don't know, it must be swampy wherever on the East Coast. But guys, from one city here with our crappy mayor who is doing very little to rein in the LAPD, we're living sort of a nightmare scenario, and New York is having a moment. New York is having a moment of hope, of possibility, as the mayoral Democratic primary plays out today. Polls are open until 9 p.m., y'all. If you are somehow watching this, or you know somebody, or you haven't voted yet, or you're at work, or you know, whatever, text your people, text your friends. You can still vote until 9 p.m. And I hope there's many polling places, but I want to bring in, it seems like we've had a switch up. Liza Featherstone not available, but a one producer, Paige Omek, journalist who is now working with the Gothamist for a little bit, is here. Welcome, Paige.
Yo, can you hear me?
Yo, I can hear you.
Sweet. Hey.
Welcome back to the show. Good to have you here. This is like a really, here's what I'm doing. I'm trying to allow the hope and happiness of Zohran Mamdani, who's been on this show before, to buoy me, even though I know a lot of fuck shit could be waiting in the wings when it comes to this New York election. But I just want to ask you, give us a sense from New York about the excitement around Zohran, the volunteers, the early voting, the young people. Why does this feel possible?
Totally. So, when Zohran started in this race, he was polling around 5%, maybe even lower. And definitely in newsrooms across the country, when folks were like, we have to pay attention to this man and to this race and what this could mean for the country, I know a lot of people were shut down because this is a 33-year-old assemblyman who, in all honesty, has passed only a few bills, but for anyone involved in organizing in New York City, they know how big of a deal Mr. Mamdani is. And we've seen that in his campaign. As of yesterday, he's knocked 1.5 million doors across the city. And he's done that with the help of 50,000 volunteers. So that number of volunteers wouldn't fit in Madison Square Garden, right? So tonight, that they're having events all over the city, election watch parties, celebrate the Zohran-momentum.
50,000 for a Democratic primary. And then I know you were saying also that 40% of early voters are under 40. So like a huge surge in young voters who often, number one, they always get blamed for like not being enthused. But, and we don't know how they all voted. But I think we can assume that some of this early young voting is thanks to the energy that Zohran has brought with him. And, some of his plans that are out there. I mean, when he was on the show, right, he was like talking about not just free buses, rent freezes, but also like really innovative, interesting ideas that, I think probably get him the socialist label, which maybe is the free buses thing, but also like community run grocery stores that are like funded by the city so that people can have affordable food that's accessible to them. Like all of these like really forward thinking ideas, in addition to public safety units, right? Rather than adding more cops to the streets, like Cuomo wants to do, like, of course, Eric Adams did. Like, what if we had people specifically to address, things like mental health crises, whatever it was, so that you don't have more situations where cops are beating people up or possibly killing them. Just talk about like, what do you think some of the most captivating pieces of him other than like himself? Like he himself is insanely captivating. He's got this like contagious smile. He always seems happy. He's like insanely gracious. Anyway, you take it from there.
Yeah. I mean, I think that that if someone isn't ranking Zohran, it's possible that they don't know who he is. And that is a big part of this race. Name recognition is obviously going to play a big role. But for those who do, I think, as you were saying, the affordability platform that he's running on is something that a lot of New Yorkers can tap into. So, this morning I was in Southeast Queens by one of the largest affordable housing complexes in the city, and they're facing a 22% rent hike next year.
Jesus.
And so those are obviously people who, if they are made aware of his platform to freeze the rent on rent stabilized tenants, like that's someone who, if those volunteers were able to get out to there, that's obviously someone who,
if they're not ranking him, they maybe haven't heard that message.
Exactly.
But 50,000 volunteers is like, it's a pretty good shot. And I know it's going up against a lot, which we'll talk about in a second.
Yeah. But I think, as I was saying earlier, a lot of folks did not think that he had a shot. And I think you're seeing just in the past week with this poll that we're going to show, it's definitely possible. And some of that comes down to New York's exciting, new, confusing ranked choice system.
Right. So this is the Emerson poll that has him after 7 rounds. There could be a flip, which, given how many candidates there are, what is it like?
11, I think.
11. that it could actually go to your 7th choice, or like, your 5th choice, right? If you can rank 5. And so this shows, Mamdani squeaking out in the last round.
Yeah, and so that's why I think even if you maybe haven't heard of Zohran Mamdani, you may have heard people say don't rank Cuomo. And that's because New Yorkers have 5 choices when they're filling out their ballot of those 11 candidates. So basically, the idea is if someone's going into the voting booth and they're, just choosing willy-nilly, or they're choosing based on name recognition, they might, or even if they're not a fan of Cuomo, they might put him on the 5th slot.
Sure.
If you don't put Mamdani, that's effectively a vote for Cuomo. If you want to vote for, if you don't want to vote for Cuomo, then I didn't explain that well, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. That like that's sort of the strategy we've talked about before. WFP, saying don't rank Cuomo, and that's like the dream. Don't rank evil Andrew Cuomo or evil Andrew for mayor, however they spelled it. And I'm like really dubious, because the ranked choice voting is I think it favors, number one, it favors democracy, period. It favors also a more positive campaign, that you can actually campaign with people and not take away from their shine, from their votes. You can campaign together. My question is, again, out of 11 candidates, even having WFP on, what was it, like a couple months ago, they were still like, oh, we're endorsing 5 people or 4 people. And it was like, I don't know, man, maybe just endorse 2. And so that was, you and I were talking about like, yeah, okay. But we will see how that strategy played out, because I know, for example, Brad Lander co-endorsed Zohran. I know that Michael Blake also, they had a cross endorsement. He's also running and really handed Cuomo his ass in one of those first debates, saying, like the only like women in this country, women in this city should fear Andrew Cuomo. It was a brilliant moment. But like, that's my worry, is that maybe they haven't campaigned together hard enough to really push Cuomo out. And we'll talk about the different, possibilities of how, what could happen in this outcome, because it almost feels like this war in Iran. You're like, well, there's actually a billion things that could happen even after today. But just to clarify it, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, definitely the one question will be, are people understanding ranked choice enough? Did people campaign together enough? But I think, for what it's worth, like on the progressive side, people definitely have to, and I think are giving Brad Lander his flowers, because as someone who, I worked on the Bernie campaign in 2020, and it was also a very, very crowded race in Iowa, and we saw that also when Trump was elected. That was also a very, very crowded race for the first time, and I'm thinking about that, the crowded field, sometimes a lot more than I'm thinking about ranked choice voting, and how this sort of information overload, which also happens in social media, sort of can, muddy the waters in terms of just voter misinformation, voters' ability to understand what's going on in this race. I think that there definitely is a lot of negative information going on around ranked choice voting. I definitely think if Zohran Mamdani wins, there will be a campaign to get rid of ranked choice voting.
Oh, yes.
Which New Yorkers, democratically made happen.
Yes.
So,
because if you had this is the reality, is if it would be no contest, right? If there weren't ranked choice voting, Cuomo, simply by name recognition, would likely get the majority. And you don't need over 50%. You just need the majority. He could win with 12% of the vote. And then everyone else would be accused of splitting the vote. And sort of to your point, I've seen people say, oh, imagine if Elizabeth Warren had, endorsed Bernie Sanders and they ran together. And I do think that's actually, it's not a perfect analogy, because we didn't have ranked choice voting and we don't have ranked choice voting in the Democratic primary. We should. And I do think it's something to fight for.
In the caucus, you do realign, which is
totally. Yes, exactly. And even if you don't realign, like Bernie and Warren should have stuck it out to butt everyone else, all the fucking centrists, out of the race. You know what I mean? That should have been sort of what I'm trying to say is, even if it is winner take all, I think running as if it is a ranked choice voting system, and really directly in the caucuses, it kind of is. I was there in Nevada, and man, yeah, the reorganization was shit, man. Caucuses are wild to watch, but at least we can say, like, I love the, like, RCV. At least it's not a caucus. But
That should be their
yes,
tagline for sure.
that should really be their tagline. Well, let's talk about, like, Cuomo's funding. Okay, Cuomo, if y'all don't know, like, if you haven't been paying attention, truly the billionaires and most mainstream media has come out completely coalescing against for Cuomo. You got Jim Clyburn, again, guy who first endorsed Biden in that pivotal 2020 race, endorsing Cuomo. Bill Clinton, because predator recognized predator, endorsed Cuomo. Just like, how aren't you ashamed? Like, even if you're Hillary, like, just divorce him now. I don't even, like, what are you, 75, girl? Just leave, but, like, whatever, just to say, like, the Clintons are not a good brand. Real estate tycoons, they're a massive super PAC that I think Akilah Lacey was saying has 26, what is this? It was like $26 million or something like that from this Fix the City PAC. DoorDash, for some reason, is investing heavily. Yes, here's the pie chart breakdown. Sadly, some unions are throwing down with Cuomo. Now, the ride delivery thing I think is really interesting, Paige. And can you just explain why DoorDash would want to throw down with Cuomo and against a plan that was, like, for affordability?
Yeah, I definitely am not an expert about the political powers of the service or servant apps, as some call them, but
Servant apps.
But yeah, I mean, they have a lot of money. We saw that in California with Proposition there, with Uber, and those deliveristas here in New York City are very strong, and Mamdani has a history of fighting for workers, like with taxi drivers here in New York City. So
Yep.
I imagine that they definitely saw their chance to align with Cuomo and
it's all to exploit labor. I mean, that's I'm no expert either, but I think it's very clear. You want to throw down with the mayor who's going to allow you to keep exploiting a massive workforce. Let's be real, often immigrant workforce, underpay them, and not have to, like, just like Uber and Lyft or whatever, like, use all the public sidewalks, stop in the middle of the street, take up a bunch of space, underpay people, never make people full-time employees, and get a tax break for doing so. Like, this is because you think about DoorDash is squarely against, New York City is run on restaurants. It's just nothing but restaurants, right? It's food everywhere. And restaurants pay a fuck ton, because instead of DoorDash and delivery services have subsumed their own delivery services, they pay a fee. So it's like all of that. It's like, who's looking out for mom and pop shops, which still exist in New York City, unlike many other cities, versus someone who's looking out for, like, those, skimming off the top, like DoorDash.
Yeah. One last random thing to say on that is New York also, which this doesn't really play into the mayor's race, but I think it's an interesting thing that people should be following, is that New York recently, I would say, criminalized biking in the city. So you used to be able to, when you got a bike ticket, either get a civil summons or a criminal summons. And now, basically, if you get a bike ticket in the city for running a red light, for doing any kind of traffic violation, you get a criminal summons. Now, let's think about that for a moment. Who could that possibly be targeting? Is it the guy with the $600 Trek bike? Is it the guy, fully kitted up? No, it's the person who does that for their job. And It's a way to get people on ICE's radar.
Jesus, yeah. That's so terrifying.
Yeah. So that's the type of stuff that's going on here, that I know a little bit more about delivery systems.
Oh, I love it. I love that random intel, but it's good. And I want to play this because, someone bitched about it a little bit earlier, which is Benjamin saying Colbert's racist bullshit with Zohran. And look, Zohran is Muslim. His dad, this is really interesting, Paige. When I was 23 in 2003, I was a little bit younger, but Good Muslim but Bad Muslim was the book, his dad's book, that came out right when we were invading Afghanistan and Iraq. And the book is basically all about how we make every Muslim swear that they're not one of the bad ones. And usually the bad ones, obviously there's you have to condemn all terrorism, you have to condemn anti-Semitism, but also if you're religious, you're a bad Muslim. If you're totally you don't go, to mosque or anything, you're a good Muslim. If you're a super westernized or whatever. And that was his basic premise and argument. And now his son is running and is a front runner, and it's so powerful and wonderful, but there's also this rabid Islamophobia that we are reminded of, right? Mamdani is facing down mailers again from those billionaire investors, who are supporting Cuomo, that all obviously target his line, globalize the intifada, or his defense of the phrase globalize the intifada, which, by the way, everyone must know this, and people who do know it already. But I used to write I helped organize a lefty paper called Left Turn, progressive paper. And our slogan was the notes from the global intifada. Left turn, notes from the global intifada. What does global intifada mean? It's a global revolution. It's rising up against the oppressors, rising up against global capitalism. Intifada literally means to shake off. It is a cry for action. It is not violent. But it's just so funny that that's, all these years later, it's being now popularized. And anyway, so there's all these all these crazy things, like people getting text messages and these mailers that have Hebrew on them that says, "Don't stand idly by while your neighbor's blood is shed." Again, very much about the fact that he is Muslim. And then this is a long clip, but I want to play it because he was on Zohran and Brad Lander were on Colbert, which is awesome and a coup in and of itself. But Colbert asks him this really messed up line of questioning, as Ben pointed out. And it was honestly truly disturbing to watch. But Zohran is so masterful. And I don't even know how he does it. He just completely, without selling out his values, his ideals, is really able to take control of this.
State of Israel have the right to exist.
Yes, like all nations, I believe it has a right to exist and a responsibility also to uphold international law.
Okay, well, let's.
So first of all, does it have the right to exist? Buddy, you're on the eve of the New York City election asking about the state of Israel having a right to exist. And then he just Zohran, yes, under international law, and that abides by international law, which again is he's not going to tell you the empty platitude without saying, kind of, nodding to the fact that Israel's absolutely out of line right now. They're fucking buck well. And then Colbert's like, oh, okay, let's get to the real issue. You're like one of the Muslims or whatever. Let's talk about it.
Let's talk about the elephant in the room, is that there are many people in New York, even people who would support your candidacy otherwise, who don't want to support you because of the Jewish community's fear of the true and rising anti-Semitism, not only around the world, but in this country and shamefully in New York, which is the largest Jewish population of any city other than Tel Aviv in the whole world. And they are worried, they're very upset by some of the things that you've said in the past, and they're afraid that your mayorship would actually lead to increased anti-Semitism.
Why? 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 Just question. Anyway, I can't believe he even landed that question, but we'll listen to his answer.
They believe that would be more dangerous for them. What do you say to those New Yorkers who are afraid that you wouldn't be their mayor, that you wouldn't protect them?
I know where that fear is coming from. It's a fear that is based upon the horrific attacks we've seen in Washington, D.C., in Boulder, Colorado. It's
all the way from Jews not replace us to today.
And it's a fear that I hear also from New Yorkers themselves.
Okay, sorry, Colbert, I just have to stop it there because all the way from Jews will not replace us today. Again, conflating anyone who is anti-genocide, who protests in solidarity with Palestinians, and Nazis and fucking Nazis. Like, oh God, anyway, let him finish, Stephen.
Just a few days after the horrific war crime of October 7th, a friend of mine told me about how he went to his synagogue for Shabbat services, and he heard the door open behind him, and a tremor went up his spine as he turned around, not knowing who was there and what they meant for him. I spoke to a Jewish man in Williamsburg just months ago who told me that the door he left unlocked for decades is now one that he locks. And ultimately, this is because we're seeing a crisis of anti-Semitism. And that's why at the heart of my proposal for a Department of Community Safety is a commitment to increase funding for anti-hate crime programming by 800%. Because
anti-hate crime programming by 800%. And notice he made it universal. I think he could have even just said, also, there's a rise in Islamophobic attacks. But yes, he made it universal, talking about program, which I think is great.
To your point, anti-Semitism is not simply something that we should talk about. It's something that we have to tackle. We have to make clear there's no room for it in this city, in this country, in this world. And
no justification for violence of any kind?
No, there's no...
Like, what are you doing, Stephen? No justification for violence of any kind?
Are you sure?
Okay. Yeah, do you condemn Hamas? Is that the time? Okay, so you, and that's not just because of the beard thing and the fact that you pray and to Mecca. Like,
I
like,
saw
what,
this
oh,
photo
like,
of
it's
you,
so
and you
bad.
You looked very Muslim. Are you
Yeah.
sure?
There was a really Muslim-y photo of you. That's not you, right? Like, just come on.
Room for violence in this city, in this country, in this world. And what I have found also for many New Yorkers is an ability to navigate disagreement. You know, I remember the words of Mayor Koch, who said, if you agree with me on 9 out of 12 issues, vote for me. 12 out of 12, see a psychiatrist. And I had an older Jewish woman come up to me at B'nai Jeshurun in a synagogue many months ago after a Democratic Club forum. And she whispered in my ear, I disagree with you on one issue. I'm pretty sure you know which one it is. And I agree with you on the others, and I'm going to be ranking you on my ballot. And I say this because I know there are many New Yorkers with whom I have a disagreement about the Israeli government's policies. And also, there are many who understand that that's a disagreement still rooted in shared humanity. Because the conclusions I've come to, they are the conclusions of Israeli historians like Amos Goldberg. They are echoing the words of an Israeli Prime Minister, Ehud Olmert, who said just recently, what we are doing in Gaza is a war of devastation. It is cruel, it is indiscriminate, it is limitless, it is criminal killing of civilians. These are the conclusions I've come to. Stephen.
Just so masterful. Like, he wasn't, at no point does he sell out. At no point does he like sugarcoat it, but it just, again, with that, like, that smile, that that personability. And it's also Paige, like, he's like, yeah, if you disagree with me on Israel, that's okay. I'm not the mayor of Tel Aviv.
Yeah. And you saw that so beautifully on the debate stage when I'm pretty sure every single other candidate, they asked the candidates, what would be the first country you would go to if you took the office of mayor? And God. They said, our favorite land, the Holy Land. Why do you say? I'm pretty sure every single, I think one person said Jamaica, but everyone else on stage said Israel. And they got to
now, like, even if you did, even if you were like a total Zionist, I'm like, now? Not that, I mean, have you read the news? Like,
and they got to Zohran, and he said something to the effect of, I am running to be the mayor of New York City, and I will stay in New York City because that's where I'm going to be the mayor.
Or he could just be like, hey, do you know Queens is the most diverse place on planet Earth? It's got people from literally every...
Republic of Astoria? Yeah.
Yes, the Republic of Astoria. There are people from every single, country on this planet. That's Queens. Yeah, man. The instructor's pointing out how many people are going to vote for Andrew Cuomo when he lied about the COVID nursing home deaths during COVID. Or do people just forget? I mean, this is what's wild, is that if any of these candidates had the track record that Cuomo did, plus the money behind them, you would never stop seeing billboards, ads, and signs, the most expensive, mailers, about the real damage, the devastation. I mean, Cuomo should not be allowed anywhere near office. Somehow, if you excuse his treatment of 11 women who've accused him of sexual misconduct, like his treatment of the elderly. So 12, right? Or like, and
13,
also not,
yeah.
13, great. And not only that, Paige, but like something, that that is also important to know is like how much Cuomo makes deals with Republicans to fuck over progressives and any real progress. And that's what he did as governor in the state assembly. And he threw Democrats under the bus so that even Cuomo's the reason that Democrats in New York suck so much shit. I mean, like are, where they are. Not all, but
Yeah, as you were saying, just right there, like, people love to say this, but it's really the organized money versus organized power. So we have something called matching funds here in New York, which is supposed to benefit small donors. So Zohran was able to raise $8 million through matching funds, got thousands and thousands of donations, and with an average donation of about $80. And then Michael Bloomberg just last week was able to donate that same amount of money in one go.
To Cuomo. Like Bloomberg.
Oh, yeah.
Like, aren't you all about like a green city? Like, this is where it really, Bloomberg is really like, obviously he's a fucking billionaire. I don't give a shit. I don't expect more from him. But it's like, that is really how when like Bloomberg, Mr. I want to invest in, real climate solutions, probably for a tax write-off. Like rubber hits the road on you throwing fucking $80 million behind, or what was it? However many millions of dollars.
Eight.
Excuse me, $8 million behind Cuomo in one fell swoop. Why? Because you're worried about your investments, dog? Like, what are you doing? And so that's a real thing. I want to play this before we get out of here because number one, you pulled it and you did the work, but it's also a great, Dan Pfeiffer from PodSave. Look, I don't watch or listen to PodSave, but sometimes people retweet them and they make sense. I think even the PodSave bros are being radicalized by this moment. This is what Dan Pfeiffer is saying about that establishment in the Democratic Party working really tirelessly against Mamdani.
You have to admit that what Mamdani has done is to build a very inspiring campaign that has energized young people for a mayoral race in a way in which no one has seen in a very long time. While that's happening, you have seen this panic among the Democratic establishment, not just in New York, but outside of New York. You have all these centrist Democrats saying, this is going to cost us races and we can't have a Democratic socialist. And once again, the Democratic establishment is circling the wagons. They have a super PAC funded by billionaires running just nonstop negative ads against Mamdani. We're all having this conversation, like, how do we get young people to stick with Democrats? How do we win them back? And then every single time there's a candidate they get excited about, some members of the Democratic establishment and billionaires get together to try to torpedo that candidacy. To do that is bad. To do it for Andrew Cuomo is really unforgivable. You're doing it for someone that the entire Democratic Party leadership, including the President of the United States at the time, wanted to resign from the governorship because he sexually harassed 11 women. He abused his power, involved in this nursing home scandal, and everyone's getting behind that. The idea that we are more scared about a Democratic socialist as the mayor of New York than Andrew Cuomo with his record of corruption and sexual harassment is insane to me.
Yes, it is insane. I mean, if it let this moment radicalize you, I mean, we will see what happens obviously later tonight. Paige, give us a sense. I mean, we know, clarify this, right? First ranked positions will be tabulated tonight.
We will know something. Maybe we could know something.
I love this. Uh-huh.
We will not. It took 15 days in 2021 for us to know.
To get to fucking Eric Adams.
To get to Eric Adams. Who won by a really, really small amount in that like same like fifth realignment type deal.
Yes.
And I would just guess that no matter what happens, it's going to be something really similar to that. It's really going to come down to those, how did Brad Lander supporters rank Cuomo versus Mamdani? How did, our Scott Stringer heads, how did they rank,
Brad Lander fans better not be ranking Cuomo. That would be bullshit.
I mean,
I got to see some of these ballots. Someone's got to be honest about their ranks.
I want to find all the rare ballots. Not enough people wanted to talk to me this morning at 8 a.m., but I was like, I want to find all these random. What I did find was like someone who told me that they ranked Mamdani and Cuomo and wouldn't tell me.
Yeah.
And those are the only two who they ranked, and they wouldn't tell me who they ranked first.
Right.
Like,
well, because
great.
that's the other thing is like Mamdani and Cuomo are probably people they've heard of if they've, because it is about name recognition. But you're right. It's like, all right, the order really matters then. And I think everyone's talking about, it seems like, look, if somehow Zohran pulls this out, amazing, and wins the Democratic primary, amazing. It seems like Cuomo's going to try to run in the general, just like, Eric Adams is running as an independent in the general. Cuomo's going to run in the general.
And anti-Semitism line, most likely. Lest we
Is that
forget.
a real line?
Yes. It's currently being litigated of like if he runs on that line or another line, and he can't actually run on two lines. But yeah, he's running on the Eric Adams running on the end anti-Semitism line.
Oh, Eric Adams is. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Fully funded by, how many of these are funded by different like Israeli lobbyist groups?
And I swear, this may be a fever dream of mine. Don't fact check me, but I feel like at least in my fever dream, Andrew Cuomo is running on some kind of like something that might have to do with women. I'm not kidding.
Well, he did create the separate, I'm forgetting what the party name is, but like the like Women's Freedom Party effectively to run to boot out Working Families Party. I'm forgetting that exact history, but he did that before.
Yeah. So basically, the thing is, we're not going to know much at all Tuesday night. We probably won't know a whole lot a week from then.
Mm-hmm.
And even then, even in a world where Zohran Mamdani wins the election, he will most likely face a four-way race in November. And if Cuomo wins the election, then Zohran Mamdani can run on the WFP line if he chooses to, or Bradley could do so.
Right. And if they, yeah, exactly. So that could be another pathway forward. It's not over. Even if Cuomo clinches the Democratic primary, I think either way, the organizing grassroots campaign that has been built around Mamdani, just the way he's like taken social media and, done every podcast, including this one, it really is a model. And it's using both volunteers and social media to his advantage, because we know that the money's going to buy the ad spots, the money's going to buy the radio spots, the money's going to buy the mailers. And I'm not saying, I know he's got a massive, strategy on that, but it's just, you can't, the money is going to be what goes the long way, and all the negative ads and shit like that.
Yeah, that's the one last thing I wanted to make sure to say, as the pod save person was kind of talking about, is, Democrats are spinning out. They're having an existential moment about what the future is of their party, and especially about how to reach young people and how to reach young men. And if that is the question on their mind, I would say wake up and look at New York City. That is, you see people on Twitter complaining about all the young gentrifiers in Crown Heights, yelling at them, telling them to vote for, it's the Bernie bro discourse all over again.
Oh,
but it's like,
sure.
if you want, young men to be involved in the Democratic Party, you need to look at this young man.
Look at these rising stars. Look at this fucking rising star. But no, it had to be Eric Adams. He's the rising star. No, man,
Nate
he's a
Silver,
corrupt.
come on.
Yeah, exactly. He's a corrupt former, police chief. Nobody wants that. People like Zohran. People like what he stands for. And also,
Eric Adams, unfortunately, has been the future of the Democratic Party. So,
Exactly. I mean, I think it's hugely consequential, not just for New York, but the entire country and the entire sort of political alignment. I think if, the establishment successfully boots him out, there's going to be a real come to Jesus moment. Either way, for for even like people like these pod save guys, and of like, look, this party is the party of billionaires, and it really isn't left right. It's just kind of like who's going to protect money and who's going to be, threaten it. And Zohran is seen as a threat. And the other thing I know about him, if he doesn't win, Paige, I mean, look, you've met the guy, we've met the guy, like he's got such a future. This guy has so far to go. I mean, if it's not going to be mayor, it'll be Congress. If it's not Congress, you know what I'm saying? Like he's going places, and that much is clear. Paige Omek stepping in the pinch. Thank you so much for being my New Yorker on the ground. Also an awesome journalist in your own right. Thank you for
Cool.
joining me.
Yeah, and if you're in New York, stay cool. Stay cool out there.
Stay cool. What is it, like 10? Is it cooling down now? Dude, this is the thing I won't miss ever about New York. It's like 5 a.m. and like 80 degrees. Like, what are you talking about? The sun's not even up. Like I was saying to my friends, I was like, dude, I get Do the Right Thing. Like everything that happens in Do the Right Thing is absolutely a product of the heat. Stay sane, everybody. And thank you all for being here, whether you're joining on YouTube or Twitch or Substack. What's up? I hope you consider becoming a member, consider becoming a paid subscriber, consider becoming a patron. Patreon.com/Bitchuation Again, goes a long way to support people like the wonderful Paige, as you can see. Only the best people. And with that, maybe we have a mini fart song. A good fart song to thank all of our patrons at $10 or more. Let me just read some comments real quick before I get the hell out of here. Thank you, Electron Creations, for your super chat. Robert says, when Zohran beats Cuomo, most Democrats and all the consultants will curl up and start mewing. It's not real. It's not real. No, they're gonna do that for a second, and then they're gonna try to stop him. Moon Dragon, happy Mooniversary. Hoping to make your Seattle show. Please come. Please come. It'll be a whole weekend. And Pretty Pink Progressive says, I was radicalized in 2002. Did my first protesting against the Iraq War for all the shit to be in my kids' generation. I hate this timeline. I hate this future my children have to bear. Girl, you and me both. That is when I was radicalized. And that is what I did. And that is how I feel. Electron Creations also saying, let's get Franny to 250,000 subs. Let's do it. Subscribe right now if you're not subscribed over on YouTube. Dark Wings Ascending. ICE has gone over their yearly budget already. Yeah, I mean, 3,000 arrests a day? A day? Diego Hernandez, thank you for that super chat. Michael Gonzalez, I hear Anna is bitching at you. She's always got something up her ass, doesn't she? Oh, not enough undocumenteds are being rounded up. Some of them are criminals. The left doesn't like to admit it, but some of them are criminals. Shut up. Fighting Yale, thank you so much for all of these emojis. Thanks for your coverage and humanity. War is a racket. Solidarity. Mod love. Yes, stay hydrated. Water is life. It is life, isn't it? Yes, special shout out to everyone in the New York City area. You know, I lived there for many years. I got nothing but love. I don't miss that heat, though. God, if Zohran wins, I will fly there for the party. Like, I just want to fly there because I need to party. I'll party here in LA. LA needs a reason to party. Please make sure to call all your people. And with that, let's do Le Fart Song. Hey, what's up? Thank you so much. $10 more. Quick Fowler, Peanut Butterfly, Cara Hurd, Robert Sheehan, Kathleen Cloud, Rick Moyer. Thank you guys so much. Thank you all, everyone on Substack who decided to support the show. Rebecca B, Two Spirit, Two Skippa, Porcupine, Hildegard Height, Haha to Finai, and Beth. Just Beth. Thank you so much. Over on Twitch, thank you. Just resubscribe with Prime. Fenrir Sulfur. 4 months strong. Al Feats also resubscribed. Take my Bezos bucks. Accepted. Fitsitch, thanks for giving out a community sub. Omega Sun Dragon, thank you for resubscribing. Hi, Fran. Hi, everyone. Hope Zohran destroys that useless Nepo. Yes. No offense to the other candidates that worked hard to be better than him, but we need new blood. And much love to the Fred Antifa. Agreed. And Fascist Killa, resubscribe. 13 months strong. 13 months of the Queen of Progressives. We need your voice more than ever. I'm so happy to be part of this community with you. Free Palestine. That makes me so happy. Thank you. Pickle Hippie, happy voting day. I wish I could vote for New York City mayor, but I will settle for Rochester mayor. And Paige Larson, 1989, 22 months doesn't seem possible. No new forever wars and free Palestine. Thank you for resubscribing. And thank you all for being here. Remember, we are streaming. God, we streamed Monday, but Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Fridays, 4 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. I will be doing a bunch of live shows. Come out and see me. Pasadena, Houston. Where's the other place? Seattle, August 1st and 2nd. And New York City to be announced muy pronto. Until then, fight the power, fuck the patriarchy, free Palestine, and don't just bitch about it, be about it. Bye.